Chris Womack. I'm the department head in kinesiology, and where I see statements of interest or statements of purpose is in our grad exercise science program. I'm part of the graduate exercise science faculty here as well, and so that's part of our application process. Also, at my previous university, I mentored doctoral students, and that was a big part of their application process as well. So, but that's all been in exercise science.
I'm Louise Gilchrist, and I'm kind of the odd man out here in that I'm not a full-time faculty member, but I was. I'm a full-time physical therapist at Rockingham Memorial Hospital, and I serve in the capacity here as the pre-PT advisor. Prior to that, I was the program director for physical therapy at the University of Buffalo. So we sat through reading essays, a little bit different from personal statement type of things that we did there. And of course now with my advising, I'm helping students get ready to apply through PTCAS. And PTCAS does have a formal prompt that needs to be addressed. Do you want me to read that now, or?
Sure, go ahead if you
Okay.
have it.
What they've written is that the APTA, which is the American Physical Therapy Association's vision for physical therapy, is transforming society by optimizing movement to improve the human experience. How will you embody this vision as a future physical therapist? So it's broad, but there are some specifics that you will have to address, and that requires a lot of thinking. So I'll pass it along.
I'm Jeannie Wennes, and I teach in the Department of Health Sciences in the Occupational Therapy program. And I also direct admissions for occupational therapy. We have moved to a more specific prompt this year, and it's because we had an autobiography or a narrative that was very broad-based, and we had such a wide range of responses that we wanted to direct it a little bit more, and now we ask 3 questions. Describe your response to periods of change or transition. Describe how formative life experiences influence your desire to pursue a career in OT, and explain the influence of customs and values on your life. So what we're trying to elicit here are some of the values in the field of occupational therapy, and we're trying to harness some of your stories and experiences to give us better information about what's leading students to that field, to that career.
Good evening, my name is David Ford, and I'm a brand new faculty member in the Department of Graduate Psychology. I'm an assistant professor in the counseling programs, and I'm the new kid on the block. I just came from my doctoral program, and I just completed 51 job applications for faculty positions. And so I've had to do cover letters, and before that I was applying for fellowships for my 3rd year as a doctoral student. And so I had to do several different personal statements. And now I am a mentor for the National Board for Certified Counselors, and we're in the process of accepting applications for our master's level and doctoral level fellowships, and I'm in the process of reading over some of those long personal statements. And then on this side of it, I get to look at the personal statements and look for different phrases that lead us to selecting them for our fellowships. And what I look for is what drew you into counseling and how this fellowship is going to allow you to finish your program and also give back to the counseling field, specifically to persons who are underrepresented populations. And so I look for how you have got to this point, how you want to be a counselor, and how you're going to give back to those populations.
Thank you. And David, that's a great transition into my next question, which is, as members of selection committees, what do you look for when you are reading personal statements or application essays? What are those things you really need to see and really like to see And you mentioned a couple. If you want to add more, you can, or you can just pass the mic around to whoever wants to share.
One thing I look for is authenticity, and just being honest about your story. One thing that we counselors look for is genuineness, and want to see that you're being genuine in who you are, what brought you to this point, some of your pitfalls, what you learned from them. But one thing I don't like is when people talk bad about themselves in their personal statements. You don't want to say anything that's disparaging in your personal statement. That's a major red flag for me. I don't know about any of my other colleagues on the panel, but you don't want to say anything that's bad about yourself. You want to put your best foot forward, but also be authentic in your presentation.
In addition to that, we also like to see your personality. We want to know who you are, and we don't interview for our program. So the narrative is a way to really sparkle and shine. And if you think about from a teaching standpoint, we're trying to put a class together of people who are well-balanced, people who will give back, people who will work together to be a great group together. And so we need to see from you that you understand those things, that you understand about being in a group and what that means. And it's essential to provide a context for your interest in the area, and to talk about what you've learned in a way that shows that it's informed you and not in a way that informs us.
I think Lucy in her talk covered some of the things that I look for. In this day and age in healthcare, communication is absolutely vital. And you have a nanosecond to get the notes down and to get it communicated well. So if your essay that you've had to do for several months and that you've been able to work on and revise and take to people, if that is not clear, if that is not well written, that would be a huge red flag for me, because you will get further practice in writing documentation once you're in a PT program. But if you come in with strong writing, strong communication skills, you are definitely have a leg up on other students, and it shines and it shows in an essay. Then following along from what you were saying about OT, and I'm sure we're very similar, there are the characteristics that we are looking to see, and of course one of them must be empathy. You must be able to try to put yourself in other people's shoes, because you're going to be treating people from all parts of the spectrum, all parts of society, and you're going to have to work with people that you may not like. That's the reality, and this comes back to the sincerity comment. And so I need to see in your statement that you truly do want to work with people and not with the cliches that Lucy mentioned so well.
In terms of the need to see, I think that has been well covered. And I'd echo, we like to see authenticity too. And you might be trying to be authentic, but it doesn't come across if you use a lot of cliches and if you say it. And kudos to informing them about that, as long as I can remember this, as long as I can remember. I've been reading as long as I can remember. But so need to see, that's been well covered. Like to see, this might be specific to my particular discipline, but I think it could go a long way towards a lot of things that y'all are probably applying for, is some mention and some obvious work done that you all are informing us why my institution, why my program. You know, what's the this marriage, you've been telling me a lot about yourself, and that's great. That's why we have that field there for you to fill in, is to tell us about yourself. But one of the things in the presentation, and this isn't just because the hypothetical happened to be in kinesiology, is when you put that statement there about that student said, I'm very interested in this particular aspect of the field, and Dr. So-and-so does this, you know, so well, fascinated with her research. That is awesome. And I'm not saying it in a way of like, suck up to us because we need it. It's really more, it tells me that you're informed about my program, and you're doing this for you're coming to me for a bigger purpose than, well, my parents live, you know, in Harrisonburg, so that'll be a good way to spend 2 years. You know, that tells me something above and beyond. You're a good student, you have some interest in this field, but now you're telling me also, you know, why JMU or why, you know, some other place. I've actually had somebody write on one of these statements how they were so interested in this one particular avenue or field of research in my field, and nobody, neither myself nor anybody I worked with, did that. They didn't do it, and that just showed that person didn't do their homework. And honestly, that was it. I don't toss a lot of applications because of these statements, but that was one I did, and so did my colleagues, and because that person wasn't informed, and so we were on to the next one.
Good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, no, didn't you?
Please add.
I was just going to say that unfortunately, in applying to PT programs, because we use a centralized application service, it is really hard to tailor to that. But going back to being informed, for sure, if you haven't spent a lot of time on the American Physical Therapy Association's website, you're going to be knocking yourself down a few pegs, because you need to know what's going on in the field, and you should be able to show that. And that's going to, most of the PT programs are going to view that very positively. As I say, unfortunately, you can't be very specific about why I want to go to that school, at least not in the generalized application.
Thank you.
And be sure that you don't say that you've always wanted to go to a certain university that's not the one that you're applying to. We've had that happen before too, and that's a pretty dreadful mistake. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you've had a season of difficulty with grades and academics, it's important that you talk about that in a way that you take responsibility and don't lay blame at somebody else's feet. So be very careful, for example, in not stating that it was somebody else's fault.
And I think you mentioned this too, but a major part of this is the fact that you will be studying with other persons. And we want to see how you have evolved as a person and how you can get along with others. You're going to have to work with a lot of, not only your fellow students, but other colleagues in the field. And a lot of our graduate programs are based on a cohort model. And if I can remember as a graduate student, which wasn't that long ago when I was a master's student, we were made to work with each other. Our professors created dynamics such that we could not survive without each other. And that was the same for me as a doctoral student. And so we have to see that you have those interpersonal skills that will integrate nicely with other persons that are different from you, because those will translate to you being able to work with persons in the field that are different from you as well. Because you'll be dealing with real people. And the other thing someone mentioned, empathy. We can't, send you out to the field with our names or your degrees, and you are out there not being able to empathize with real people.
Well, you guys have covered some of the next question, but I would love for you to add more. What are some of the common problems that you see? Is there anything you would consider like the kiss of death for an application? And also, maybe what are some things that you see over and over again that you're tired of reading about, this sort of same old story?
Bad grammar. That's a big no-no for me. And Microsoft Word has real good spell check and grammar check, but we also have a really good writing center here at JMU. So I suggest that you not only write your personal statement and do your final draft, but get someone else to look at it, someone who has a professional set of eyes. Look to your professors who will give you some really good feedback. I'm the type of person that I will go through line by line on your personal statement and give you feedback on what you're saying. What will be a more succinct and better way to say it. So make sure that you are adhering to proper grammar rules and being as succinct as possible.
We tire of reading about people who started out in one profession or one pre-professional track and then they've switched to a different one, and they might spend too much of their narrative talking about making that change. I think it's a typical thing for people to explore different job possibilities, different careers. But what we'd rather hear is what you think is great about our profession.
Those in the audience that have come to visit me have heard me say that I do not want to hear you say, when I was in 10th grade, I blew my knee out, and then I had to go to physical therapy, and, you know, I saw the light, and all is good, and that's why I want to do physical therapy. You've got to get deeper than that. That may be your initial motivation. But the other thing that's very key is that you should show that you are interested in learning all aspects of physical therapy. You may have it in your mind that you only want to work with professional sports teams, but you can't cut off all the other things that physical therapy is. And when you go to physical therapy school, you're trained as a generalist. You can specialize later on, but your initial degree is, yes, you're going to have to do chest physical therapy. You're going to have to learn about the vestibular system and how to treat vestibular disorders. You're going to have to work with old people, kids, the whole gamut. So be sure that you're not cutting yourself off by saying, oh, this is what I really want to work with, this type of patient only.
Deal breaker, echoing bad grammar, bad writing. You're going to be writing stuff for us, and that's a vital part of being a graduate student, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's a thesis, whether it's a dissertation, it depends on what program you're going into. But you're going to be writing, and if you can't produce something with one of the, I mean, if you think about it, tell us a little bit about yourself. If you can't deliver on that, I'm going to be really skeptical about your ability to deliver on an assignment or on a bigger, more complex piece of writing. So that is just a deal breaker. I would add, you know, what I said before about a nice to see. You know, it's nice to see, not a huge deal, but nice to see you've thought about our program and know something about it. An addendum. When I was reviewing doctoral applicants, and this is, I would say, in my opinion, this is more specific to doctoral programs that are research intensive. So you're going to be doing a dissertation, and it's going to be a big deal. And you're going to be working with a particular faculty member in those kinds of programs. Ours, you know, exercise physiology, biology, physiology, you know, a lot of the sciences are this way. A lot of, you know, but a lot of the liberal arts are that way too. But you need to know about your program going into it, and that's part of knowing about it. You're applying to a person as much as you're applying to a school or a program in situations like that. So if that's you, if you're going into a doctoral program that's research intensive, it was a deal breaker if that person didn't say anything about the person. If we read their statement and we didn't know which of us on the faculty that person really, really wanted to work with, deal breaker. Because we've had 10 other people call us individually and say, oh man, I want to work with Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith is doing this. You don't have to prove to us that you know all about our research, that's why you're coming here. But you need to show that you put some thought into it. So if any of you all, either now or in the future, are applying to a doctoral program that is research intensive, find out everything about the person you want to work with, and it's as important to address that as it is, I want to be in this program. And that was a deal breaker in that situation, so I just wanted to add that.
Great advice. Final question. In the best personal statements you've encountered, really memorable ones, what stood out? What did you really like? Even if you want to give a sort of specific statement or something you remember, that would be great.
Man, I wish I had a real cool one. The one you put up about the mountain climbing and the marathon, that was pretty cool. Wow, I haven't gotten one like that. That was pretty cool. You know, the best ones, the person knows who they are and can get that across clearly and succinctly, right? If they can tell me in a page who they are as a person and as an aspiring professional or student, and why we're a good match, and do it in a, like I said, a clear, concise manner, that's going to translate well to their abilities as a student, at least in our specific program. So the best ones I see do that. And I immediately think, like, wow, we can work with this person. So
I would have to say that one of the things I look for, I've had some where they've had some major challenge in their life. Something's gone wrong, just like, you know, various people get hits in their life, and they've had something that way, but they don't tell it to me in a way that, oh, I want special dispensation, or I'm kind of whiny about it. They're saying, this is what I learned. I learned and I grew. I had to deal with this situation. I know it's nobody's fault. I had to deal with it. And I learned this either about myself, I learned about other people, I learned from it. The ability to self-reflect, I think, is critical in most professions nowadays. You've got to be able to stand back and look at what it is that makes you work well and accomplish the goals or the patient that you are trying to accomplish.
So important. I really appreciate those comments that you made. And I think maybe the most interesting essays that we read start with a scenario maybe from a shadowing experience. And it reflects not a list of things or saying something like, I really helped this person, but how did the situation teach you something about maybe what you need to know, or what insight did you gain about the nature of the job? And maybe you observed an occupational therapist in action, and there was something that moved you or touched you about that, and a desire to emulate some of those qualities that you saw. Those are the kinds of things that are valuable to us, and that helps us understand better your personality, and it shows us some authenticity as well.
And I just got through reading over some personal statements in the last couple of days. I think for me, things that really stand out is how you spin your personal story into how that has helped you to evolve into the person that you are now, and how that evolves into your passion for your particular discipline. Like I said, I teach in the counseling program, and we're trying to give out our fellowships for future counselors. And we have fellowships for persons who want to work in rural areas, persons who want to work in addictions, persons who want to work with minority populations. And I want to see exactly how you intend to tailor your counseling work to those populations, and how your own personal story has brought you to this point. One cliche that just causes me to just shuck an application and just say, nope, this person is not what we want, is when someone says, I'm in this to help people. No. Well, yes, but I want to see you take it a lot further. And so what I look for in a person who wants to get into our graduate program or wants to go further and get into a doctoral program, not only are you there to help others, but we as counselors empower persons to be able to help themselves. And so I want to see how you can take that a step further into our respective disciplines, whether it be physical therapy, occupational therapy, or whatever. I want to see how you can give back and then help that person to pay it forward. Because we're investing into you, so we expect you to invest into others.
I know we're near the end of our time. In fact, this is supposed to be the end of our time, but if you are willing to stay a few more minutes and take a few questions, I want to open it up to the audience. If you have questions for any of our panelists or for me, raise your hand. Questions? Yes?
I'm just curious how people, like, if they really had a bad semester or something, how you receive that without making that the whole, like, with still being able to tell the rest of your statement.
So the question is, if you've had a bad semester, so grade-wise, how do you talk about that without letting it overwhelm your entire statement or take over your statement? Any suggestions?
Well, I think you understand a lot about it already because you're asking about how can I do this in a way that's not going to overshadow everything. I think it will help you relax a little bit about that if you understand that you're talking to real people. So the people on the committee understand about things like that, and there are circumstances in people's lives. There was a great example that Lucy had up on the board about a way to talk about situations without listing all of those situations. So maybe in the same way that you can talk about having some great time management skills, think about that in reverse and talk about it was a difficult semester. I was taking, this many hours. I was working, or even at the beginning of my college career, I didn't have the discipline to do these things, or I didn't know how to study. And just put it out there, just be honest about it. And what's really exciting is to look at trends and to say, in retrospect, I've learned so much from that difficult time because it really pushed me to go on and take some harder courses. It really directed me to the resources that were available so I can improve my skills, those kind of things.
That's wonderful advice. Yeah, I think, saying what you learned from the experience and then also showing that you have grown and can demonstrate that wasn't a continuing trend, that was isolated or limited or changed at some point. Wonderful advice. Other questions? Yeah.
One of the things that we have to address in ours is strengths and weaknesses. So I was wondering what's your advice of the way to spend a weakness?
Okay, so how to talk about your weaknesses if you're asked to talk about that.
It's one of my favorite questions. If I can think back to my experience, when someone asks me about one of my weaknesses is that I have a kind heart. And I talk about how I've learned to temper that and to use that as a positive. And so you never want to talk bad about yourself. Another weakness is perfectionism. I talk about how it can be a detriment, but also how I would use it to be an advantage. And so you take something that would not normally be a weakness and spin it as a positive. Understand? Does that? Yeah.
Thank you.